Hey, it's Zana. Welcome back to Mirror Mirror. And if you're new here, hi, I'm an independent music artist. I write, record, and produce my own music. And I also film 3 videos a week here on my YouTube. And this series is all about relationships because they are the key to life. And this topic, I received a DM on my Instagram and she asked for my advice on how to stop bringing trauma into the present. And I decided I might as well film a video on it because it's something that I have battled with for so many years. And if you've watched my video where I explained my whole experience in an abusive relationship, you will understand why I struggled with this and also how common it is for so many people to always bring old trauma, old experiences, and basically the past, and then enmesh it with the present as if it's happening again in the present when it's really not. It's just a trauma response. And like, trauma responses and reactions are very, very difficult to move through, to understand, and then to be able to change. Like, it's not an easy thing, but it is so possible. And like, I have had to work through it so much, but it does require a lot of self-awareness and accountability for the fact that you are essentially projecting onto the person that you're now with currently, whether that's romantic relationship or friendships or family, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. We can do this with so many people. So I'm going to use romantic relationship as the example because the person that asked for my advice was talking about a romantic relationship. So for this example, I think it's easier if I take it from my own experiences because like, that's just the best way for me to explain it. So we're going to talk about it from the standpoint of an abusive relationship, which is what I've dealt with, but it literally relates to any relationship, including friends and including family. So like, from my experience, and this is something that I did kind of recently as well, like, after you've been through a traumatic situation, no matter what it is, when there's trauma there, when there's something that happened that was painful, even if it's like cheating or if it's like a betrayal in some way, like lying or something, no matter what it is, when there's some kind of wound there, it can be so easy to then, like, that wound gets triggered again when you're in a new situation with somebody that's never hurt you, never done something wrong, but because you're so used to that behavior, like, it kind of has an imprint in your body and in your energetic field. It literally leaves an imprint of what that felt like, of what caused it, like what kind of memory it was, you know, like, there's just a full-blown imprint in your mind and in your emotions and in your body. So then when something happens that then triggers that, it reminds you of that old experience, even though the new one may be nothing to do with the old one. It could be a completely different situation, but it reminds you of the old one. So the point where you then, like, for me, my whole body would just kind of tense up, like, it brought over anxiety. It would just feel really uncomfortable because now I would doubt myself. I didn't know how to move forward or like how to interact with this person anymore because it felt like, oh my god, like, I've been here before, holy shit, kind of thing. Like, you don't know what to do because it literally is a trauma response. Like, it's triggering an old trauma, and those old traumas are painful as hell. Like, you might have gone through some really horrific things or some really bad things, so if it's triggering it, it's not going to feel very nice. And then it's like, how do you move through that and move forward with that? And oftentimes we then project the whole past experience onto this new person. So you might treat them badly or like treat them as if they were the old person when they've not done anything wrong, and then they don't know how to handle that or how to be with you. They don't know how to like open up to you either or love you, essentially, because you're closed off, because you're trying to protect yourself from old trauma. But the thing we have to recognize is whether this present situation is the same as the old one. Like, is it the exact same behavior? Is it similar behavior? Is it repeating that? Or is it just a trauma response? based in the past. Like, are you projecting onto them, or are they actually doing similar kinds of behaviors that don't feel good and that aren't right for you? You know, like, you have to discern the difference between the two as to whether the current person is actually doing something wrong, or whether you're kind of projecting your past onto them. And for me, the way to tell the difference with that is to really look at the situation that's triggering you, look at what's happening, look at the behavior, and look at their intent as well, and kind of like try to see and understand. I mean, it's essentially looking at their patterns. Like, are they doing something that disrespects you, first of all? Are they doing something that insults you or puts you down or makes you feel small? Like, what are their words? What are their behavior and actions? What are they actually doing? Uncover what that is first, so that you know whether it's like, whether your emotions are coming from the present or whether they're coming from a past experience, you know? Because if they're doing something right now, even though it's a new person, if they're doing something that disrespects you, then obviously, like, it's not just a trauma response, it's a trauma response from the past, but it's also reacting to something that they're doing in the present. So you need to be aware of the two. And then if you realize that they're not actually disrespecting you and they're not being malicious or doing something that's intentionally going to hurt you, but that you're scared to open up, like they want to do something but you're scared to do it, or they're trying to be with you and you're scared to open up to them. Like, you have to know the difference between whether it's about their behavior or whether it's about you and how you feel, and the fear that you're feeling, and like the anxiety and things that you're feeling around opening up to them. And once you're aware of the fact that it's you and that you're scared, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that, you know, like, I've had to admit that myself in my relationship as well, and how terrified I was to open up in certain ways and stuff, because I mean, if you've been through some bad things, it can be difficult, and like, being vulnerable anyway, regardless of going through negative things, is hard enough without going through some like toxic things that really... Was that a fucking bird that just made that noise? What the fuck? That was a weird noise. Yeah, it's difficult enough being vulnerable now anyway, without having past trauma and stuff on top of that. And to be honest, the majority of us have trauma, whether it's in a romantic relationship or whether it's just family and like, and school years and stuff. Like, we all have so many different traumas in so many different areas of our lives that really affect how we behave and carry ourselves as adults, and how we behave in our relationships. So it's just really important to have self-awareness and know where your trauma is coming from, know where these emotions and these thoughts are coming from that are coming up when something triggers you, to really understand why you're feeling triggered, what it is that's triggering you, and what emotion it is that it's triggering. You need to be aware of all of these things so that you can then figure out how to move forward and know how to move forward. So for me, like, being vulnerable in things was a really difficult thing after coming out of a really abusive, toxic relationship. So I had to become aware of the fact that I was getting triggered so many times in so many different ways when it comes to being vulnerable and when it comes to connecting with people, and even just being authentic and speaking your truth and stuff. Like, the things I had to work through a lot. So the way to do this, first of all, is self-awareness. And then after that, it's a case of, and this is going to sound like, oh God, but it's a case of really implementing it. And that doesn't mean it's easy, because it's not easy. And it's literally like a daily effort, which I know people don't want to hear, because it's like, oh, can't you just give me a quick fix? Like, how can I make my relationships better? How can I do this kind of thing? But there is no quick fix. It's a lifelong journey, which is what we're here for. You came here to Earth to have relationships, to experience love, to experience giving and receiving. Like, you came here for this experience, so it's not going to be a quick fix. Not to mention all of the trauma that you may well have gone through. It's not going to be a quick fix to be able to open up and have the most incredible relationships, you know. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it can be quick, but sometimes it takes time, and you can't beat yourself up over the length of time that it's going to take, or punish yourself for it not being instant, you know. So it's a daily process of, number one, self-care, number two, self-awareness. And really, once you understand the wounds and the areas that are being triggered, so like I said, for me was being vulnerable in things. Now in my daily life, as a daily practice, whenever something comes up, whenever I'm around people and I'm experiencing connection, not just romantic, but my friends, my family, I'm then having to learn every single time I speak to somebody, even in my DMs with you guys, like, it's teaching me how to connect, it's teaching me how to be vulnerable. Filming these videos is teaching me how to be vulnerable. Like, it's a constant self-awareness and then taking a step forward to try and be vulnerable. Like, it's a constant thing that just is never ending, to be honest. So the advice I would give you, if you're in a relationship right now and you really want to stop bringing past trauma, like past things, into the present, is to first of all become aware of the fact that you're doing it. And if you're watching this video, then you most likely are aware that you're doing it, which is amazing and is the first step. So you should actually be quite proud of yourself for that, because a lot of people are not self-aware. So you've achieved the first step, which is self-awareness. You know that you're doing it and you want to make a change. So now think about like all of the ways that you behave in the relationship that are causing problems, and also the ways that the other person is behaving that are causing problems. And then when you have these interactions with the person, you can literally allow yourself to be honest and let the person know exactly what it is that you're dealing with. Like, especially if it's in a romantic relationship, you may well have already told them certain things about past experiences that you've had, so they're aware of the trauma. Like, they need to be aware of what it is that you're dealing with and where you're at mentally, so that they can decide whether this is a connection that they're willing to invest in, you know? Just like you would need to be aware of things about them too, to decide whether it's a compatibility match for each other. And like, they need to obviously have compassion and hold space for you to be able to process the trauma that you're essentially reliving, because every time a trigger comes up, you're basically reliving that trauma. So they obviously need to have space for you to be able to do that, but at the same time you also need to hold accountability to yourself, because it's not their job to heal you. It's not their job to cater to your trauma to the point where it makes them sacrifice parts of themselves. Like, you have to be the one to deal with it yourself. You have to be the one to pick yourself back up. You have to be the one to be aware of the fact that something's triggering you and that it's not this person, it's actually a past situation. You know, you have to be aware. Self-aware is like the key to life, and if we're not self-aware, then you're just going to stay in the same cycle. So nobody else can do this for you, unfortunately. I wish they could, because that would save all of us so much stress, but they can't. So you have to do it for yourself. Be aware of all of your wounds, and then work towards I want to say healing them, but like, work towards, I guess, making peace with them. And there's a lot of ways to do this, to be honest. I don't know if I should cover that in this video because it's going to be ridiculously long, but I'll give one example. One thing I like to do is I will go in my mind, I will like set some time aside for myself to visualize, and I will go back to a past memory. And I mean, I've done this in a therapy session, and I've also done this on my own, where I'll go back in my mind, I'll see the past memory, I'll see myself like third person. I will literally see that version of myself in front of me experiencing that situation, and I will see what she needs. And most of the time she just needs acknowledgement. She needs to know that she's heard, she's understood, she's felt. And who better to do that for you than yourself, because you are yourself. Like, you do feel your emotions just like the other version of you felt emotions. You can fully feel them because you are one person, like one being. So you can go back in your mind to that memory and really just acknowledge how you felt back then, because oftentimes the reason why we're still feeling the trauma is because we're not wanting to acknowledge it. We're trying to like push it to the side and bury it, you know, instead of actually allowing ourselves to accept the fact that this happened, that this is how I felt about it at the time, and that it wasn't a nice experience and that I didn't deserve it and I didn't ask for it, but that it happened. And I can't change the fact that it happened, but I can give myself love now for the fact that she was really suffering. She didn't know what to do, like she felt so unworthy. All of these things of whatever you felt, you can just go back in your mind. And one time I literally just went up to myself and gave myself a hug, like in my mind. My younger self, gave her a hug, told her that it's gonna be okay, that you will get through this, that it's temporary and it's fine, like you're stronger than you think, kind of thing. And I don't know, it just made me feel a lot better, to be honest. So only we can heal our own trauma, and maybe I will make a video on the full steps of how to heal your trauma, because it's a full, like, lifelong, in-depth thing, and it's probably different for everyone as well. But in order to stop bringing the trauma into the past, you have to be actively working through your trauma. You also have to be actively self-aware of everything that you're bringing into the present, and then consciously make the effort not to do that anymore by talking to the person and letting them know where you're at in your life and why you keep reacting the way that you do, and then actively seek to change that. Say they trigger you to completely retreat, then what you would actively do is, when that trigger comes up and that desire to retreat is, you can tell them that you're feeling it. Maybe you will retreat and you'll go and sit in your room, or you'll go sit somewhere by yourself. But then when you do that, you'll be able to analyze and feel into exactly what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and give yourself what you need in those moments, so that you don't retreat for like weeks at a time or something. You'll just give yourself what you need in each moment, and then you'll be able to communicate that with the other person so that they know exactly what's going on, and they won't feel so like, not disrespected, but just so abandoned and so awkward and like powerless in how to help you, if that makes sense. So there's not really one answer to this. There's a million things that you can do, but the number one thing is self-awareness and communication, because oftentimes when we're bringing things from the past, the other person isn't aware of why we're reacting the way that we are, or like what's going on. So you have to just communicate and let them know exactly what you're feeling and exactly why, and also the fact that it's not necessarily about them, it's more an issue and a wound that you're trying to deal with, and they need to just respect you and give you some space to be able to process that, you know. And I don't mean space as in physically, I mean space as in like emotionally and mentally. Instead of trying to like pull an answer out of you and pressure you into doing things, they just take that pressure off and just allow you to express when you're ready, kind of thing. And then yeah, you just have to work through it, to be honest. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Do stay tuned, because I will film a video on how to heal your trauma. And don't forget to check out the links in the description box for all links to my music, social media, my phone number, my merch, my healing jewelry brand, and just so much more is all in the description box below. And you can also DM me or comment below or text or WhatsApp me if you have any video requests, because I'm always open to requests on anything that you want me to talk about. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I do upload 3 times a week. So yes, I will see you in next week's video. Bye.
You could say I love you, I can't get enough, boy, I just want you to myself.